Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Ranting Redhead. I am your host, Aiden, and just letting you guys know I'm recording this episode along with my previous episode back to back because I'm going to be gone for a little over a week, and I figured I'll get you an extra episode, and as soon as I get back, I'll record another one. But this is a topic that I personally have always wanted to discuss, but I don't know if others are interested. So I figured, hey, you know what? Screw it. Why not? Let's test the waters, shall we? I am a really, really big movie fan, as anybody who knows me knows that I love all kinds of movies. I have a huge collection. I have probably in my room right now just 250 movies that I haven't even seen that I just collect. And I intend to see them eventually, but the point is I love watching movies. I love watching them. But here's something that's been bothering me for a while now. So I really don't like going to the movie theater as much anymore. And I talked about this in a previous episode, but not just because of the way audience reacts, but the movies that my theater always plays are like the big grand scale epic movie of the month, like the Marvel movies, the big Warner Brothers movie, DC, Star Wars, superhero movies, adventure movies, all that stuff. And they're fun, okay? They're fun movies, don't get me wrong, and there's some that are really good. Like last year, I actually really liked the new Suicide Squad. I thought that movie was a ton of fun. It's a superhero movie. I don't like superhero movies as much anymore, but I gotta admit that was a good movie. But I'm just saddened that a lot of movies that I look forward to sometimes really don't get the chance to be played in my theater. Like all of the what was it? What was the movie I just saw? Licorice Pizza. It came out in December, and I had to wait till February to see it because it started getting nominated for some awards. So the theater would show some movies, but that stayed in the theater for like a week. I'm just lucky that I happened to be passing and I saw it, and I'm like, you know what? I got to go see it. I've been dying to watch it. And less than a week is all it was in the theater for. They put it in, nobody saw it, and they took it right out just to make room to show Batman, or to show the Uncharted movie, or Spider-Man still, Scream if that movie's still playing. All these movies. And here's the thing, if you like these movies, great, have a great time. Who am I to say that you shouldn't like them? If you enjoy them, that's all great. Have a ton of fun. But to me, they're not the movies that I really look forward to anymore. Like when I was younger, I really loved those kind of movies. I would die to see them. I had like a movie pass thing to where if I paid like $23 a month, I could see unlimited movies, but after a while I just canceled it because a lot of the movies that they were showing I didn't care for. They just weren't fun. They weren't fun for me anymore. And I don't know. I like to watch a lot of older movies because back then they didn't have the special effects or the biggest budget to do grand scale movies. So what they did is they focused on story and they told a really nice, well told tale. Like I just watched the movie. I mean, this is not an older movie, but an example of a really good smaller movie is Zodiac. I just watched that for the first time last night. Great movie, even though it's based on true events, and you know the outcome. If you know anything about it, you know that they never caught this guy. They never caught him, but somehow the director David Fincher just made it so thrilling, and I'm like that's kind of amazing that you know what the outcome is gonna be, yet he keeps you intrigued until the very last scene. And he did it perfectly. It's one of his best movies. I haven't seen all of them, but I liked it better than Fight Club. If you don't know, he directed Fight Club. But I would take that movie any day over any superhero movie that is coming out right now. Like, out of all superhero movies, there's a few that I really like. I love the original Superman. Probably my favorite though is Logan. I really loved Logan. I thought that was a really well told movie, a great drama and western. But and of course, like The Dark Knight is really good too. But I don't know. They don't really do anything for me anymore. Same with Star Wars. I used to like Star Wars a lot, and now it's just like they won't let Star Wars be. They just have to keep milking every single penny out of people until people finally say enough. And I'm recording this as of like 2 days after the Obi-Wan trailer came out, and that's something I was looking forward to. But even as I watched the trailer, I'm like, it seems just a little too big. It seems too grand scale for the story that I kind of wanted to see. And if you like the show, great. I hope it does well. But just for me personally, it's not something that I look forward to anymore. And I do like big movies that were hits at the time. But the movies that came out like in the 70s, 80s, and even the 90s, they were all not original, but they weren't just big grand scale movies. Like look at Jaws. It was based on a book, but what made it great is the dialogue, the tension, the characters, everything about it. The set, such a great movie. The score, the directing, all of it. All of it is great. Why is Jaws better than any superhero movie? Because they have a story to tell about these three characters and their fears, them trying to save this town, that them showing like how desperate they are in the end. That's really good stuff. But it really focuses on this story, whereas big superhero movies and Star Wars, they just focus on the scale. They like everything to be bigger and better. And I will say this, I do like movies that sometimes are big action movies that don't have the best story, because they are really fun. They are fun for me, but it has to be done well. The scale has to be done really well, and it has to be very unique. Like okay, the 2008 Rambo. I fucking love that movie. Love that movie. And I remember I showed that movie to a friend and I told him, I said, "Look, this movie, it knows what it is. It's a very simple story, but it's so much fun. If you like R-rated action movies, it is so much fun if you like that, because number one, it is pretty violent. But what that movie does, it makes you hate the bad guys so much that when Rambo kills them all in this, I get spoiler, when Rambo kills them all in the end, it is glorious because like these people did some fucked up shit, and you know what? That same terror is about to rain down upon them. And that's what makes that movie awesome. And Stallone is great in almost anything. I mean, he's in some shit movies, but I do like watching him in anything. And that's another thing I'll point out. There's really good actors working today. There are. Like I mentioned Star Wars, I'll bring up Adam Driver. Adam Driver is a great actor in like Black Klansman and Marriage Story. And I didn't see it, but I heard The Last Duel is really great. But he's not like a movie star. He doesn't have that charisma. He's a very good actor. He's very good, but you don't see like movie stars anymore. Like just a movie that you go to just based on like, hey, this is I don't know. Let's say this because it's a Nicolas Cage movie. That was a horrible example. Okay. Because it's a Tom Cruise movie. Tom Cruise, you're gonna get something, whether you like him or not. It's like, hey, we're about to see a guy like actually do his own shit right here. He films all his own action sequences, so it's gonna be interesting to watch. It just, I don't know. No, there's a lot of actors today that don't really have that charisma to where, I'll go see this movie just because it has Kurt Russell in it. And to me, that's one other thing I'll say about like the big Marvel movies is they all end the same way, just about like this big action sequence. Buildings are falling down, punches are flying, kicks are going, bows are flying, arrows are flying everywhere. And I don't know. To me, they all feel the same. They all feel the same way. Just like this big action sequence. They lift a city out of the earth. They rise a city just to have it come crashing back down. It's like, I am going to destroy the world. Well, here come the Avengers. Here comes the Justice League. Here comes this. Here comes that team. That just to me, they all seem the same. To where when you have a small movie, you get to see a more intimate. You get to see a more intimate side of storytelling. You get to see like, this took a lot of craft. This took time and effort to put in. To whereas I'm not saying that big superhero and Star Wars movies don't have those things, to where they don't have good writing, but to me it just feels like it, it feels like none of them have a distinction except for maybe Guardians of the Galaxy. And I don't love those movies, but they do feel unique. They do feel like a James Gunn movie, whereas everything else just kind of all feels the same, and that's why I don't really care for it. And because everybody watches a Marvel movie for a few things. One, because they're like, these are the heroes I grew up with. These are the heroes I love to read. Well, grow the fuck up. Grow the fuck up, first of all. You can do what you want. I don't care. Two, because they want to see the big action scene at the end. And three, for the post-credit scene. That's what people like to see in Marvel movies. They like to see the big action scene where and once again, it's a thing where most of the action scenes in those movies really just feel all too similar for me. And I'll say this, like, most of those movies have pretty bad villains. That's why you don't really care about the action scene. I mean, everybody loves Thanos. Everybody loves him. But he's a good villain. I don't think he's one of the best, but he's good. He is really good. But there's better villains in other comic book movies even. Like obviously everybody goes to Heath Ledger, the Joker. There's many villains that are better than him. Dr. Octopus and Spider-Man 2. I'll even say Green Goblin in the original Spider-Man. And I will say this, I actually do really like those two movies as well. Spider-Man 1 and 2. Love those movies. And even Spider-Man 3, it's not great, not at all, but it's kind of a guilty pleasure. I don't hate it. I don't love it though. I've always said, to me, the most important parts of movies, I think that the two most important parts of a movie are the directing and the music. The music is the most underrated part when it comes to a movie. That can make or break a movie in a second. I mean, look at the original Star Wars movie. Do you really think Star Wars would be this ginormous hit if it had just a mediocre soundtrack? No. John Williams, the composer, made it one of the most, if not the most iconic score ever. And that's not even my favorite score. He's not even my favorite composer. But you got to admit, like, without him, like, Star Wars would not be where it is today. And even other movies, like I mentioned, Jaws. Jaws would be just if not an average, below average movie if you didn't have just those two notes, the da dun da dun da dun da dun. If you don't have that, then you don't get that movie at all, because you don't get the success that movie was, because the great thing about that is you don't ever see the shark that much until the end. And so you let the audience do the thinking for you. They think the worst thing out there. So when you don't see it, your worst fears are right out in that water, and that music just amplifies that just enough to where it's totally believable and not over the top. That's why, just going back to why I like smaller movies, that's why I've been watching over the past year. I've been watching like a lot of older westerns, because they do have action in them. They do have obviously gunfights. What western doesn't really? They always have a big gunfight, but it's so small to where you really get to know the characters. You really get to live out this world, and you really start to care. Like, everybody always says, like, now, like, people of my generation go like, oh my god, Avengers Endgame has maybe the greatest ending ever just for that battle. That's the coolest thing ever. No, that's not even one of the top, for me, not even top 30. Not even close. I don't even think that's the best ending in a superhero movie. I think that Logan has the best. But anyway, if you take like Avengers Endgame, put that ending, all this shit flying around, CGI people flying all over the place and Thanos gets defeated. We knew it was going to happen. Whereas a movie, my favorite movie of all time is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Love that movie. And to me, that has the greatest ending to any movie ever. And it's funny because I tell people what the ending is without telling them why it's so good. I say it's just, all it is three men staring at each other. And it's the coolest thing ever. What that movie does well, and that's why music is so important, because without music for that movie, you don't get anything iconic. Like, that's probably the most iconic Western out there, and you don't get the big success that it is. I don't even think you get Clint Eastwood as a big star without that movie. I mean, he had the two others, Fistful of Dollars and For a Few Dollars More, right before it. But without that movie, with how amazing it was, I don't think you get him at all. But going back to why I think that music is so important for a movie is because without the music, you don't get the emotion that is supposed to be conveyed. And like, okay, look at Rocky. Look at the movie Rocky. Without the famous theme song, it's not as exciting. You're not as thrilled. You're not ready. You're not getting pumped up for the fight unless you hear that music. When you hear that song, Gonna Fly Now, as he's training, you're in it with him and you want to see him succeed just because of that music. Whereas if you take that out, it's not as good. It's not good at all. You don't really want to follow him, and without the music, it seems awkward. Because it is a montage, and without good music, you can't have a good montage. I mean, Team America made a whole song about montages. Even Rocky had a montage. And if you look at obviously Star Wars has great music. You get John Williams, you're gonna have good music. Even though the sequels don't always have the best music, like, that is one thing I will give the prequels, I guess, is the music in the prequels is awesome. The music in the sequels, there's a few standout songs that are original, but some of it does it works though. Some of it blends in, but not too many of them stick out. Whereas Marvel, I think there's only two good songs, and I'm a huge nerd when it comes to music and movies, but there's only two good themes. Obviously, everybody loves the Avengers theme, the bum 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 bum. Everybody loves that. But Iron Man 3, that's not a great movie, but the music in that really helps it. The music in that movie is awesome. Check it out if you haven't. But I guess just to wrap up my thoughts, because I know this episode is running a little longer than usual. When you have these big movies, you don't really have time to grow with the characters. Obviously, like Star Wars, Marvel, DC, all that. Obviously, there's several films to give you some character stuff. But when you watch them on their own, they don't really work. They don't really tell a cohesive story on their own. They rely on other movies. I mean, if it's a TV show, that's different. But when you have the expectations, you're just waiting for that big action scene to where you're not really focusing on the story, I guess. I mean, you are, but you're not. You're really waiting for the big superhero fight or the big lightsaber duel. That's what you're waiting for. Whereas a smaller movie I'll give another Western example, like Rio Bravo. You know there's going to be a gun duel, but what they do is they really tell this story and let you get to know the characters and care for them. That's what a good movie should be. The characters need to be one of the things that you have to focus on if you're going to have an audience be engaged for 2 hours or however long the movie is. And it's strange because this is only an issue that I find now, because older big movies, they don't have. I mean, there's some really bad older movies that are big movies, but not all of them had that problem. They really, I don't know. It's different because, you know what? Let me look up a quick list before I finish. So I just looked up a list and it says old blockbuster movies, and of course, when you look it up, they have movies from a few years ago, like The Avengers and Avatar. That's not long ago. But I mean, Blockbuster really started with Jaws, which was 1975, and I've already talked about how great that movie is. Okay, here's a movie that I don't love, even though most people do. I don't love the movie. It's good, but the reason why people saw Jurassic Park so many times in the theaters is because it was the first time you saw like big CGI on a big screen. You saw it in full display. It was bigger tn ever. Like there were a couple movies before that used CGI, like Terminator 2. I think The Abyss, Last Crusade used it for a second or two. But watching that movie was something new. That was something nobody had ever really seen before. So, and this was before my time, but people had never seen it before, and that's why people kept going to the movies to see it, because it was something new, and that's what something new is what we're missing. And I'm not saying that every movie has to come up with something new, but you should try. You should try to come up with something different that makes you stand out. That's what older blockbusters did right, is they had a distinction. They didn't all bleed together unless it was a trilogy like Indiana Jones. But hey, even those movies, they're all very different. Like the first Raiders of the Lost Ark is a pure adventure story. Temple of Doom, I love Temple of Doom, but it is a messed up horror movie that's gross out but still an adventure. And Last Crusade is an adventure story with family. It's a father-son story. So, as you could probably tell, I love to talk about movies, but I'm not going to waste too much more of your time. If you'd like me to do more of these discussions, let me know, because I could go on for hours about this. If you don't like it, don't even say a word. Believe me, I got it. So that's how I'm going to end the episode today. Thank you all so much for listening. And like I said, I will not be posting for a little over a week because I will be on vacation, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys after that, because I guarantee I'll have some fresh rants ready for you all. Thank you all so much for listening. I'll see you next time.